I'm top 1% for my age, and this is all because I changed my identity. Now, top 1%, meaning income wise, meaning health wise, like I think most people, 99% of people don't have a six pack. I think only 1% of the population has a six pack. But here's the thing, is that becoming 1% is actually not as hard as you may think, because it's a collection of different things to become the 1%. But you have to change your identity in order to get there, because the version 2.0 of you, that is the top 1%, is a very different person than the version of you that you are right now. And you have to have that identity shift in order to get there. Now, I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars online, and in the last 5 years online business. I'm 22. This is my fifth year in online business, and I have made most of that money in the last 2 years, realistically, right? And so the reason why, yes, of course, it comes down to experience and networking and knowledge and skills. Yes, it comes down to all that. But the reason why specifically is that my skills and knowledge haven't increased that much. Like, they increase a lot in the beginning, and then at the end, and then after the beginning, you learn 80% of what you're going to learn at the beginning, in the first year or two. And then after that, it's, you learn a little bit here and there. But the basics are the basics. Once you learn the basics, it's not going to change much. But the thing that actually changes in order to get you to the top 1% is the changing of who you are. So, I used to hate country music, right? Growing up in Southern California, very liberal and communist, especially now, which is why I escaped to Florida, which is a story for another time. But basically packed up all my stuff and sold a bunch of my stuff, packed it up, what I had left, and drove across the country and moved to Florida. So, I should say, escaped to Florida. And so I used to, growing up, really hate country music. Like, my parents loved it, and it drove me crazy, right? And listening to, growing up, probably 6th, 7th grade, and then through high school, most of high school, I would listen to, predominantly rap, a little bit of hip hop, maybe a little bit of R&B, but predominantly rap. And because that's the culture that I grew up with, especially in Southern California, and during the time, I'm 22, I was born in 2002. So especially during that time is when there's big, it's big. That's what it is. And in the last few years, I realized, because I've been listening to music less and less of that type of music, and started looking for other music, because I was like, this messaging is terrible. Like, what they're talking about, I don't agree with at all. Right? So I'm like, why am I listening to this? Because it's just getting programmed into my mind. Because like when you're little, you're taught through song. Because music, and I'm not going to get into music and frequencies, but there's some weird stuff there that has a lot of truth. There's a lot of, voodoo fake stuff around it, but there is some truth to it for sure. Now, that's for another time, because I'm still learning about that. But music gets programmed into you, right? Because you're never gonna, you can think of a ton of songs and sing like almost every single word to it. But you think about the last time that you read a book, a paragraph, can you remember that? Memorizing scripture? Good luck, right? Because there's something special about that. And so what I really realized was that I wasn't aligning what I was consuming with who I wanted to be in my identity, right? And so there was a big disconnect there. And it wasn't until I fully started stepping into who I wanted to be, that version 2.0 of myself, what I envisioned for my life. Once I started stepping into that Then things started coming into play. Then opportunities got thrown into my lap. Because here's the thing, is that whether you believe in God, universe, karma, whatever you believe in, I believe in God, but whatever you believe in, I believe that God is not going to bless you until you are capable of stewarding those blessings. And that's why you get tested. That's why you get put through trials and tribulations. Because, think about it this way, you don't give a baby a loaded gun. You don't do that. Why? Because they are not capable of stewarding that blessing to be able to protect yourself and others. They're not capable of that yet. But when they are capable, after trials and tribulations and growing up, guess what? They will be capable of stewarding that blessing to protect yourself and other people. So, what does that mean? That means that God, the universe, karma, like I said, whatever you choose, or whatever your belief system is, but God is not going to bless you until you are capable of stewarding the blessing. So that means that, yes, it's important to work on your knowledge, on your skills, on all that stuff, but it is equally, if not more important, to work on who you are as a person so that you are capable of utilizing fully to the full capacity that you can those knowledge and skills that you acquire, right? So that's how I want to kick this off. We're drinking Four Roses small batch. It's pretty good. My mom recommended it. I like it. All right, so going back to country music, right? So I was one decision away from being born and raised in Alabama, but I ended up being born and raised in California. My dad almost took a position at a job he was working when he was younger in Alabama and would have relocated. Not much of a story there, but that's what happened. Now, growing up in Southern California in that environment, you become a product of your environment, right? And so part of changing your identity and creating that new identity that you have and that you want for yourself to be able to be in the 1% and to be able to be capable of receiving the blessing and being a good steward of that blessing, you have to do the things in order to create that new identity. So that means that you have to build the mental and physical fortitude and capacity to be able to handle those things. So what that means is you have to, in simple terms, you have to work on yourself. Okay? Now, that means there's going to be cutting of some things and there's going to be growing of other things. So there's going to be cutting in regards to you need to cut out the things that are not going to help you. Now, you will have things that this is all off the top of my head, guys. I have like one line written down that I wanted to talk about, but it's just the topic. So give me a second here to chew on this. But essentially, you have to cut at some things, and you're going to have to cut a lot of things. And you're going to have to replace some of those things with new good habits. So, obviously, excessive anything that is bad for you is not good, right? Excessive drinking and getting drunk, not good. I don't do that. But there's nothing wrong with enjoying a drink once a week, right? Not a big deal. So, there's limits to it. Because you have to understand, I heard this once in a podcast from some CEOs that were talking, and they were talking about your personality, your identity is like a board of directors, right? A board of a large company. they all kind of agree on the same mission and want to get the same thing done. But sometimes they have different ideas and slightly different ways of wanting to get things done. And sometimes they just want to go off and do their own thing for a little bit and then come back to the table. But they all have the same goal, and they're all involved in getting to the same destination, right? So that means that sometimes you're going to have to feed those desires in a way to get that thirst quenched and then come back and continue moving on the goal. So what that means is that doesn't mean be a degenerate and do stupid stuff and accidentally get girls pregnant. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there's going to be parts of you, like when you're working all the time. We're not meant to work all the time, right? So I used to be very with the hustle culture, work 16-hour days, do all this stuff, Gary Vee, post 20 times a day. That's cool, but you get burnt out really fast, really fast. And so instead, it's much more healthy to find a balance. So take a day off from technology once a week. Do a partial or full dopamine detox, right? Just don't be on your phone for a day or half of a Sunday or whatever, right? So you can give in to those things slightly. Like I said, drink once a week, that's not going to hurt you, right? Unless I just slammed it and chipped my tooth. And glass will probably break first before my tooth. But that's not going to hurt anything. So there's parts of you, going back to that board, where you're going to have parts of you that want to do something. Give it a little bit of taste, quench that thirst, bring it back to the table, reconvene, move on to the goal. The problem comes when you fully give in to that and you go crazy. When you can't control those desires, you can't control those things. That's when the issue arises. And that's when you have identity issues. That's when you have all the members on your board of your journey of where you're going. Your different parts of your personality and identity are not aligned, and you're not going to succeed. So what that means is you need to be able to change your identity and accept that things are going to change. And sometimes you might even need to change. And you need to get a outside sense of change as well. Not just internal mentally, but an external change, right? So I moved from Southern California where it was a little bit more laid back, kind of, surfer dude. A lot of people like smoked weed out there and didn't have there's rich people out there, but there's not a ton of ambition. Like it's a lot of old money and stuff a lot of times, right? So that wasn't good for me. What I need in this time is young, hustler, entrepreneur energy, very young, healthy. That's why I moved to Florida, because that's what I was looking for. And so being able to do that and surround myself with like-minded people is huge. And so some of you might need that right now. Excuse me. You might need a change of pace. I just ate a giant steak and sweet potatoes. So got a little bit of hiccups. But you might need that right now. You might need external factors to help change your internal. Meaning your identity. So you might need that. You also might just need to work internally and, like I said, fight those battles. Give in to things a little bit. Quench the thirst, give it the taste, reconvene to the board, and move on. You also might need to do that. You might need to do both. So, the question is, what do you need to do to become version 2.0 of yourself? Identity 2.0. Tyler 2.0. What did I have to do? And that's going to be different for everybody. So I want you to think of what you need to do to be able to become the person who is capable of stewarding the blessing that you want from God for yourself. You ask for blessing, you ask for money, you want success. But what are you doing to even be deserving of it? Asking for it is not going to do anything if you're not capable of being able to, wield the power. Right? Like even Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. It's exactly what it is. I think that's Spider-Man. It's one of the superheroes. I don't pay attention to that stuff. But that is the truth. So, who do you need to become in order to be in the top 1%? Because the top 1% is only capable of people, and the top 1% is demanding of people who are capable of receiving the blessings of top 1%ers. So, that might say no. That might be saying no to a lot of things. That might be saying yes to difficult things. So become version 2.0 of yourself. Change your identity. There's nothing wrong with hearing people say, oh, you've changed. Oh, you're different now. Great. And you haven't changed. You're still the same person stuck in the same place. That doesn't make a difference on my life. Don't be afraid to be a little bit ruthless and a little bit, I was always a very nice guy, people pleaser, and not really that way anymore. Quite honestly, sometimes most of the time, I don't care. Because if it doesn't directly affect me, then me caring just takes up my energy that can be used in another way that can be able to help myself, my future family, and other people. And you're stealing from that. And then you're not even going to allow me to help you in the first place because you don't want to listen to me and you're just stealing my energy. So, what are we doing here? Right? You have to remove those relationships and go find new people. Because there are people out there. So, change your identity, become top 1%, find the others. We're out here.